Hard-hitting questions. Move over, Cronkite. Step aside, Cooper. There's a new anchor in town, and he brought his player's card. Welcome to All In with the Mayor.
Guys, welcome to All In with the Mayor, and I'm the Mayor, and I'm super honored today for my first ever guest on the podcast to be none other than Cowboy Slots. Brantley, thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for inviting me. And
Appreciate
it's an honor
you.
to be the first guest
Well,
on the show.
it's
pretty
honor.
cool.
It's an honor for us to have you on as the first guest, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We met, 4 months ago, 3 months ago, something like that at El Cortez.
Yep, over at the El Cortez.
Yeah, we were super excited to meet with you. We got to hang out with Vegas Matt, Lady Luck, all these different people that we met before here at the Peppermill. But it was our first chance getting to meet you, and you're at the Peppermill today.
I'm at the first trip to the Peppermill.
That's awesome. How you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good on this trip.
Nice.
Got a lot of good content, good videos coming out.
And you drove in all the way from Wyoming.
All the way from Wyoming, yep.
So how many hours was that?
It was an 11-hour drive.
Wow. So you and I talked earlier. I've got some family out in Douglas, Wyoming, and my wife and I took our 6-year-old, now 6-year-old, out there a couple years ago for a wedding, and we stopped 3 times on the way out in Boise, Jackson Hole, and a couple different places, and then we drove all the way back. That's a long drive.
It's a long drive. It's a boring one, especially through northern Nevada.
So you a road warrior? You like driving? Or?
I do, yeah. I enjoy it.
Yeah. It was, I'm usually about 3.5, 4 hours. From here to the Bay Area, I'm good to go. Any farther than that, I'm like, put me on an airplane. So let's start off like this. Again, just want to say, appreciate you being here. Let's get into it. So You've got a really fascinating background as a former slot machine technician. And I think that's why your channel's growing so fast, because it's not just about sitting and playing or entertainment. You also do some educating. So what originally drew you to that line of work, to being a slot tech?
Oh man, well, for starters, it all started with one machine. I was interested in really getting to know how slot machines worked. I dabbled in gambling a little bit, and I was just kind of fascinated by it. So I ended up purchasing a machine of my own, brought it home, started working on it, and then the person that I got it from, started working with him. We started selling slot machines, and then got in touch with a field tech, kind of went under his wing a little bit, learned from him, learned a lot as I went through that process. And then I got recruited by the casinos to come work for them. And I worked for about 4 casinos. And here we are today.
That's awesome. So what was the one slot machine that you became interested in?
Oh man. The first slot machine that I ever bought was a 5-line triple stars slot machine. Somebody out there has it now, because I sold it when I started my reselling business. It was one of the first machines that I had ever sold. I kind of wish I didn't sell it, because it was a great machine. But somebody out there has it, the first machine that I
Is that a
worked
video
on.
machine or a real machine?
It's a real machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what, I guess what would say was your aha moment that made you decide to start Cowboy Slots in 2022?
Yeah, 2022. It's crazy. There wasn't, I mentioned this in a previous interview I did a while back. I did not set out to start a channel. I actually did not know anything about YouTube at the time. I knew nothing about it. The first channel that I ever stumbled upon, what happened was I was sitting at home bored one day, and thought came into my mind about like a certain combination of a hit on a slot machine. And I did a Google search, and YouTube came up, and it was Stacy's High Limit Slots.
Oh yeah.
That was the first video I'd ever watched. And I had reached out to her because I started watching all of her videos, constantly. And then I reached out to her because she mentioned something in one of her videos once about, oh, I don't know what this does. So I reached out and I was like, hey, did you know this about the games? She's like, no, I never knew that. So I was like, hey, do you mind if I'll put together just a little video and, just some random facts about slot machines. So I put together this video. It was terrible, by the way. Like because I didn't know anything. I didn't have any audio, you know, lighting, anything like that. No editing, nothing. It was like literally like old phone, just, you know, hey, kind of thing. Put that out there. And again, I was YouTube stupid. I did not know anything about YouTube at all. I put it out there, you know, and sent her the link, but I didn't realize everybody could see it. And it was like a couple weeks went by and it got thousands and thousands of views, and the subscriber count just started going nuts off of that one video. And my first thought was, I can't believe people like this stuff. Like, I didn't know, you know, like this was a thing. And then, you know, so I made another and another, and I realized how much it was helping people, and that there was this big gap in the YouTube realm. There was, you know, there's a lot of people on YouTube that they take educated guesses. You know, they guess,
Right.
you know, well, I think this machine does this or whatever, or they'll, you know, they've got a lot of myths in their mind. But there wasn't anybody out there that was actually from the industry that did the job, that did it all, to actually say, no, this is how it is. So I realized it kind of filled a niche, and it just kind of tumbled from there. But I originally, Cowboy Slots in reality was an accident.
Well, it's interesting because, like, right now, same thing with our channel. So we started our channel. Now it's called Jackpot Slot Spot. It's going to be called Casino Carisa, my wife, and we started it just to get content for this app that I'm creating. And then all of a sudden, people jumped on, and, you know, it just went nuts. I'm like, this is really, really fun. You know, it's what I found out about it. It's like, so my background is I'm a musician, and I play drums and I sing. And when I get on stage, that's one of my favorite things to do, is to entertain people. Seeing a smile on somebody's face, that's all that matters, you know. And it's like reading a crowd, doing that kind of stuff. And I saw that it for me, it's almost the same thing that you're talking about, educating somebody, putting a smile on their face, just entertaining someone. And when we do live streams, it's one of the most fun things ever, just interacting with, you know, 1,500 of my favorite closest friends, you know, and it's like they're sitting there, you know, giving me crap and just like going back and forth. It's so much fun. I didn't expect that. I didn't know anything about it. I had seen a couple videos, you, Vegas, Matt, Lady, like I've seen some of the big ones, but I didn't know anything about it. And now we're getting into the nuts and bolts of it. And there's so many people out there that are trying to do it. My question to you is, for someone that's getting started right now, and I'm sure a lot of people that are going to watch this are going to go, I want to do that too. What's some of the best advice you can give for someone who's just starting out with the channel right now?
Well, there's a lot of things that would be helpful to somebody that is just starting a channel, but the first one is, you got to be unique. You've got to be unique. Everybody with a cell phone can record slot play.
Right.
You got to add something to it. You know, Vegas Matt has, you know, great banter with his whole entire crew. It's almost like you could almost watch a Vegas Matt video and just turn the video off and listen to the audio and still have a great time, you know, because there's that dialogue that goes on there. And, you know, we're kind of getting into that position now. Like, there's thousands of people out there that are wanting to start slot channels. You got to do something different.
Right.
You got to add something unique. You can't just sit there with the camera and play. You know, you got to add something unique to it. That would be the biggest one. Number two is persistence. You've got to be persistent about it. YouTube is very weird in the algorithms and the way it works. If I didn't grab that if I didn't grab the bull by the horn, so to speak, when I first started my channel and go with it immediately, because I've been consistent with it since the second that first video went viral. And that's one of the things the algorithm looks for. So if you come out with a video and you just sit there and don't do anything for like even a week or a couple months or something like that, and you come back, the channel won't grow. So you've got to be consistent about it, especially when you're first planting those seeds and getting started. So that would be advice number two. And really have fun. It's a great community. You know, everybody's really nice in the slot community. I reached out to Stacy when I first got started. If I didn't reach out to Stacy, the channel wouldn't be here today. So reach out to somebody else that is that does have an established channel, and don't be afraid to ask for advice. Everybody's really cool about it.
that's one of the most interesting things I found. Even like meeting you at the El Cortez, um, Vegas Mad, Big Jackpot, NG, so nice.
Hmm.
I mean, everybody across they're just like, how can I help? Which is amazing. Because I mean, like I come, like I said, from a musician, from a band standpoint, and it's like we were all fighting against each other. It's like it was, but that was when I was younger. Maybe it's a little bit better now that I'm older. But it was a very kind of heartwarming and nice thing to see that everybody's so nice and so helpful across the whole genre, if you
Oh
will.
yeah. Well, and the other thing too is there really is, in our realm, there's not any kind of competition, at least between channels.
Right,
Because when you think about it, well, you're a musician, so if somebody is going to listen to music, they're going to listen to a variety of different bands. They might have a favorite,
right.
but they're going to listen to more than just one. Most of the viewers out there that watch slot content, they watch everybody. So it's like you're not competing, by taking a view away from one, like by taking on a viewer, you're not taking away a viewer from somebody else. Everybody watches everybody. So why not help each other out
It's
and just
interesting
have
'cause
fun with it?
I go to other people's live streams,
Mm.
and it's like there's a whole bunch of our viewers that are on there, and we're just sitting there talking back and forth on the chat, and I get to actually sit there and chat with other people on somebody else's live stream and send super chats to people. It's so much fun, and that's what I didn't expect, and like
Oh yeah.
coming into it now, I mean, it's just like it's part of my daily routine is to our 6-year-old goes to bed, I sit there on my phone and do that, and which I never did before until I jumped into this.
The funny thing about, just the slot community in general on YouTube is very small. When you compare it to, I mean, there's channels out there that are just post cat videos and have hundreds of millions of subscribers. There's channels out there that do a lot, there's history channels. I watch a lot of history channels on YouTube, and it's like somebody's just getting started. They can get 100 million subscribers like almost overnight. But our genre is very small. And the way I see it, it's kind of like that classic saying of a rising tide lifts all boats. Encourage somebody else to be successful
Right.
because it's going to help you in the long run too. So it's a great community to be a part of.
What I want to talk about now is some of your technical
Yeah.
expertise. So, as a former slot tech, what's the biggest misconception that people have about slot machines and how they work?
Odds and RTP, hands down. Odds and RTP. We hear that all the time. Everybody is so focused on what are the odds? What's the RTP? What's the return to player? They have no idea what that normally means. So the thing is with RTP and odds,
I'm
that
one of
is
those people.
all right. So, you know, slot machines run on a mathematic principle known as the law of large numbers. And basically, what the law of large numbers states is the more aggregate of large numbers that you have, the larger that number pool gets. There's an average that it averages out to. So when a slot machine is designed, there's a very, very large pool of, random numbers that obviously the RNG chooses from. You've got really big pay tables. And when they run it through testing, they do it on the millions and millions of spins. So normally it's 10 million spins. So what they say is there is a mathematical average. So over the course of 10 million spins, given all the options, what is the average theoretical of that machine going to be? And it only has to come within a certain percentage of accuracy in order to pass testing. That percentage is calculated over millions and millions and millions of spins. So what that number means is if you find a machine that says, the odds are 96%. There's a lot of folks out there that believe, well, I'm going to play the one that's 96 as opposed to the one that's 92 because that means I'm going to win more. No, it doesn't. That 96 means out of every single person that will ever touch that whole machine in its entire life, it'll average out to 96. So that's a lot. That's millions of spins, millions of dollars. That's a lot of years, a lot of months.
So one of my questions is,
Yeah.
so what do you know what the average lifetime or lifespan of a machine is?
Really,
Or it depends on the machine or the maker? Or...
the thing is the machine, there's machines in casinos that are, have been in operation since, there's some machines still out there from like the late 80s and they're still running. It's not really a set defined thing. When they calculate the math and when they calculate that theoretical, it's calculated usually based on a graph of about 10 million spins. So there could be a machine that's super popular. Dragon Links are one of them. They're super popular. They could hit 10 million spins in a couple months, but there's some games that are not as popular that, could go 10 million spins in 10 years, so there's not really a defined, this is the life of the machine kind of thing. From the moment it's powered on to the final time it's powered off is its life, whatever that happens to be, it happens to be. But as for the math, it's calculated based on the amount of spins.
Wow. That is, I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, and most people don't, and it's the biggest thing. It's a huge misconception, which I'm sure you'll have more questions about, bettering your chances at the casino, stuff like that. But it's a huge misconception. It's the first thing that ever will, pop to a gambler's mind is, what is the odds? What's the RTP? What's the setting? What is this, what is this machine set at? I want to know. And I think it's because that's really the only technical term that people have really heard about or know.
Yeah.
But it goes so much further than that, and that number means absolutely nothing to the individual player. Now, if you're gonna, it might mean something to you if you decide, I'm gonna sit at this machine for the next 5 years straight, and I'm just gonna eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner and sleep at it, and I'm gonna sit here and I'm just gonna do this for 5 years straight. Then it might matter. But if you're, say, oh, we're going to Vegas for the weekend, I got to find the one machine that has the best odds, or the one casino that has the best odds and the best RTP. You could go play a machine that's 99% and lose your ass. Or you could go play a machine that's 85% and hit the biggest jackpot of your life. That short-term window, the machine does not care about that individual session. The slot machine is looking at the long-term picture, that law of large numbers, that mathematical principle is what the machine is running on.
So when you're sitting there at those sessions where it's just sucking money, and you think, oh, I've put a lot of money in this thing, it's got to pay off. Absolutely not, right?
That's because we're thinking about it in our time. In our mind and in our window, we're sitting there, as gamblers, we're like, man, I've put so much money into this machine. I've put so much time into this machine.
I know the RTP is big here.
The RTP is big. I've got to win. It's like, that slot machine doesn't give a shit. It doesn't.
Right.
It's not focused on that. And the other thing to remember too is, and this is a topic we get into on the channel, money by itself has varying definitions to different people. If I were to ask you, and if I were to go ask 20 people, you tell me, what is your definition of a lot of money and a little bit of money? Everybody's going to give a different answer to that. I've met people before that they've gone into the casino and they say, man, I never win anything here. This machine is tight. It's ice cold. I put $100 into this machine. You know how much $100 that machine has taken? Probably millions that machine has taken, and that machine doesn't care.
Right.
$100 is nothing to that machine. So everybody has a varying definition of what a lot of money means to them and what a little bit of money means to them, and you just have to remember the slot machine itself doesn't care.
Right.
So it might feel ice cold to you, but it's nothing in the long-term aggregate of that slot machine.
Let's go to the other side of it. So I sat down, I don't know, a month ago or so, and I just had a ticket for $250. And I'm not the biggest fan of Dragon Link. It's too volatile for me. It's too much money. I'll sit down sometimes on pennies and stuff, and it's still the same thing to me. And I actually enjoy pennies and 5 cents and that kind of stuff. It's like, it's not as much tension for me when I'm doing lower stuff like that. So I put $250 in downstairs here at the Peppermill, and within a half an hour, I cashed out with $17,000.
Yeah.
So my question is, how much of what players believe about hot and cold machines is just a myth versus mechanics?
Well, here's the thing. There's nothing mechanical about a slot machine that makes it hot or cold. It's the nature of randomness, which is something that is very, very difficult for the human mind to really. Humans are bad at statistics, and they're bad at.
I saw something you shared
yeah,
today. I shared it with my wife.
Humans are bad
Yeah.
at, our minds are not wired to understand statistics and probability or anything like that. And the thing is, like, mechanically, there is no hot and cold with slot machines. There's nothing in the programming. Every single button push is its own random independent event. And you have the exact same chances every single push. It doesn't matter how much the machine's paid. It doesn't matter if it hasn't paid in a long time. And there's nothing about mechanically about the machine that makes hot and cold any kind of factual information. But I have an experiment for you. I want you to do this. And actually, if your viewers are watching, I want them to do it too.
Guys, get ready.
Okay. Do this not only to yourself the next time you play, but do it to somebody else. The next time somebody says or thinks that this machine is hot or this machine is cold, watch how they twist the narrative to get the result that they want. And here's what I mean by that. I'll give you some examples. This machine is ice cold. It's not going to pay out. I need to leave it. Or they'll twist it. This machine is ice cold. It's due. I need to play it. This machine is hot. It just paid out. It just paid out a big jackpot. It's hot. We've got to play it. This machine is hot. It just paid out a big jackpot. We've got to leave it because it's not going to pay anymore. They'll twist the narrative to get it to fit whatever they think is the right answer. If hot and cold were true, that wouldn't occur.
Right.
So watch next time you hear somebody say this machine's hot or this machine's cold, and reference, because they'll always switch their point to work in what they want their narrative to be. That's an interesting thing
That is interesting
to do.
So along those same lines, so you walk up to a machine, and I don't usually follow the grand jackpots because those hit every 6 months, year, whatever it is. Majors I follow all the time, right? So when I'm chasing a major, let's say it's me, and I see one that's maxed out at $50,000. When does the machine say that that's going to hit? That's just a random number generator that says, boom, it's time to hit it right now.
So the machine does not know when it's, so there are must hit by progressives that do exist out there, but most of them are not. So let's just use Dragon Link as an example. Is it advantageous for you to play the highest major? Yes, it is. Not because your chances are any better, but because if you do happen to hit it, you want to get the most money. You want to get the one that that is going to yield you the best result. You have the same chance on any of them. I've hit majors that have just refreshed, and I've hit majors that are capped out. The machine does not adjust or wait to try to pay out at a certain time or anything like that. There's no adjusting in the machine that tells it when it, when it's due or anything like that. It'll hit when it wants to hit.
Right.
And a lot of people think that if the major is capped out or if it's a maxed out major, then, again, that due theory, it's due, it's got to hit because it's been maxed out forever. Chances are still the same, even if it just reset.
I've heard those same kind of narratives you were talking about with the majors too.
Mm-hmm.
It's maxed out. I'm not going to play it because it'll sit there forever. Or it's not maxed out, so it's not something I want to play. So again, it comes back to the thinking of the person instead of the actual mechanics of the game. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, the gamblers always have a tendency to, in their mind, they want to adapt what they're seeing and interpreting in order to make it work for them, to, give them that hope, give them that rush kind of thing. But there's no, factual information about that. A progressive, just because it's maxed out, it's not going to be due to hit anytime soon. Now, must hit by progressives, those are different, but those are also clearly labeled as must hit by progressives. Those do have a number that they must hit by, but other progressives, unless it says must hit by, no, they're not due.
Well, let me ask you a question about must hit progressives. So when it resets back down to whatever the original progressive amount is, or the reset amount is, when it resets, does it know when it's going to hit then that next time?
On a must hit by, yes, it does.
It does.
Yeah. So how must hit buys work is So we'll look at, I just hit one recently on Eagle Bucks. Ainsworth, they're probably the biggest known maker of must hit by progressives. How it works is as soon as that progressive hits, it resets. The second somebody hits it, the machine is going to randomly select a number value in between the starting point and the must hit by point. And whatever value it selects, it's going to store that in the secured memory. And as soon as it reaches that number, it'll pay out. Interesting enough, and a lot of people, a lot of people think that there's, actually, let me preface with this story. I got to tell you this. It can be any number between the starting point and the end point, any number at all. But the advantage play to it is as that number gets higher, your chances on it do increase. Why? Because it's already cycled through a lot of the other possible options. So the one that I recently just hit, it must hit before 10,000 and it starts at 9,000. So the random number generator could have selected any hit point in between 9,000 and 10,000.
Any penny.
Any penny. And when I saw it, it was at like 98.60. So it's already cycled through 860 and all those cents options to get to that point. So there's very, very limited options left. So it does become advantageous on those. The biggest thing that I want to preface with, though, is a must hit by progressive must be clearly labeled as a must hit by progressive. If it does not say must hit by, must win by, and have a number on it, it is not a must hit by progressive. There's a lot of people that think, like especially Dragon Link, oh, it's maxed out.
First time.
It's got to hit. And it's like, it's not a must hit by. It can sit there for a long time.
First time I saw one and played one, it was at the El Dorado years ago here in Reno. And it was at 99 something. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to hit it. And I put, I don't know, I think I put $12,000 into it to hit the 10,000. And then it maxed out at 10. I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
I was so pissed off at myself for not being educated enough to figure out that, oh, and then somebody else hit it the next day, as I walked away after losing $12,000. But again, that's why we're doing this. Is why I'm so excited to talk to you for things like this. There's a bunch of stuff I've already learned. I'm sure a bunch of other people have too. So thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking here about an industry. This is a whole entire multi-billion-dollar industry that is built around messing with your head.
Well, that was so great about the thing you shared today on Instagram, I think it was. And they didn't start developing or studying percentages until after they were done with calculus.
Correct.
And I hated calculus, So to think that they waited until after calculus, like in the 1800s, to figure this stuff out, that's how far behind the brain is on figuring these things out.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we could get into the weeds on it for hours.
But I've got another question that I think is going to be really interesting to everybody. So what's something that from the technician side that most casinos would prefer that players didn't know? Get ready. Get out your notebooks.
Well, I would say probably the biggest information is probably the actual math of the games. That is not information that I can share. It's information that I've seen. And, there's a lot of, so for example, par sheets. Par sheets are one thing. Every single slot game that is ever created has a par sheet. Basically, in a nutshell, I mean, we can get super complicated with it, but to simplify it in a nutshell is basically the par sheet is what is given to casinos that basically tells the casino how that game is supposed to play out over the course of that lifetime. It has things on it like your virtual reel set, liabilities of your progressive versus your base game. It has a volatility index that is on it. I know a lot of people say, oh, volatility doesn't matter. That's literally on the par sheet. It has a name. It's called the volatility index of the game. So it is a real thing. It is on there. It is on the documentation.
Well, it's interesting because when you talked to us about that, when we mentioned the El Cortez, I've so noticed it now where I didn't pay attention before. But it's like you can totally tell the difference between the volatility from, I think it's um, Happy and Prosperous and Panda compared to Golden Century and what's the other one called?
Autumn Moon.
Henrietta?
Autumn Moon.
Autumn Moon. We call her Henrietta.
Henrietta. Yeah, volatility, and this is why, we talk about this on the channel a lot, is it goes back to everybody's so focused on that payback percentage. And what's the payback percentage? Payback percentage is I want you to picture it like this. Picture a racetrack, okay? If you're picturing a racetrack, the RTP is the finish line. The volatility is, does that racetrack have sharp turns? Does it have high hills and valleys and all that? How does it get to that point?
Okay.
The volatility is how it reaches that point. The RTP is just the end result of that point. And that's a result that you're never going to see. So that's why volatility is important, because it tells you how the ride of the game is going to go. How can you, as the player, when you sit down to this game, expect that game to feel and expect that ride to be? You could have really high points. I'm using the racetrack example again. We look at a game like Double Diamond, for example. It's pretty much just a straight track. There's no big dips and curves, and it's pretty much just a straight track. It's going to be slow. It's going to be consistent. You're going to just get little bit, and it'll average out over time. But we look at a game like Huff and Even More Puff. Huff and Even More Puff, that game would have really low valleys and really high peaks. You could go a long time and just absolutely get destroyed and have lose. You could dump tens of thousands into it and just constantly lose. But when you pop it, that's going to be its really high point. And that's just how it gets to that, end result RTP. So when we talk about volatility, it's important for players to understand their personal position first. Obviously, from an entertainment standpoint, what do you like? Some people really like the rush of those deep valleys and high peaks. A lot of people really like that. But maybe people don't have the budget for it. Maybe they need something that's a little slower and steadier. So that is probably volatility right there is a huge key to success in slots. And you don't have to have the par sheet to know what the volatility number is on the game or what the index is on the actual game. You just have to look at the game, look at the game rules, look at the pay tables, understand it. If you walk up to a game and, for example, Megabucks is the most volatile slot game out there. Why is that? Because you're betting $3 for a chance to win 15 million.
Right.
Look at that gap. Always the easiest way for anybody to tell volatility is look at the amount that you're betting versus the highest top line award. So $1 Million Dragon Link. That's a really popular one now. Everybody loves $1 Million Dragon Link. You got a $1 million progressive. If it can pop on any of the bet levels, but if you're betting $25, you've just made that volatility much worse because you've got a huge gap. Now, if you're betting $2,500, you're a lot closer to that. You could probably pop it a lot quicker. Maybe not, though. So that's an easy way to tell with volatility is take your bet amount, look at your bet amount, and then look at the highest possible award for what you're betting. The bigger that gap is, the more volatile it's going to be.
Well, it seems to that like the newer games, and they keep getting like we were talking before the podcast, like the new Yo Yeti and those games. Like there's so many different bonuses and like the multipliers and all that kind of stuff. They have to work out the math to be more volatile to make up for those big bonuses, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Easy rule of thumb that we always talk about is anytime a game maker adds a feature, they have to take something away from somewhere else. Huff and Puff, every time they've redone Huff and Puff, they tend to take away from the base game, which is the line pays. So you look at, for example, you compare the original Huff and Puff to Even More. The line pays are a lot less, but also the values of the hats are reduced as well. So like a a mansion on even more puff is going to pay less than a mansion on more puff is going to pay less than a mansion on the original huff and puff. So the values are reduced, but they're reduced because now you have a chance to get the bigger screen. Now you have a chance to get more of them. That's, you know,
And
they have
again,
to
it
make
comes
it work
into
some way.
what's the person like?
Exactly.
The peaks and valleys, or they like the slow and steady?
Yep. It all comes down to personal preference. And there's some folks out there that they absolutely, and we're seeing this especially with the newer generation of gamblers, those gamblers that are, you know, freshly 21 and they're just coming into the casino, they like the risk. They like that rush. They like that reward. It's not like, you know, back in the, you know, 70s and 80s, you know, playing quarters, like they want a big risk for the possibility of a big reward. So,
Let me
yeah.
ask you about another advantage play before we move on. So Phoenix Link, Buffalo, that has the number up in the right-hand corner. When is it advantageous to play those? Does it get over a certain number and it's advantageous to play those, or stay away from them, or what's kind of your
You
feeling on
know,
those?
I'll give you my personal feeling and my professional opinion. My personal feeling, I don't like any of those games.
Okay.
I don't like the Buffalo Link. I don't like the design of the new Phoenix Link. I don't like how it plays. I think that Phoenix Link is a very rough ride. Um, I can tell what they were trying to do. They were trying to merge Dragon Link and merge Buffalo Link into one. Um, I don't think, you know, I could see where they're going with it, but I don't think it was very well designed. That's just me personally. That's my personal view. If you are going to play it, obviously the counter can go off at any time.
Right.
It can go off at 200. You know, I believe the must hit is by 1800. I've seen them go off at 200, 300 quite frequently. But I mean, anytime it's over, you know, cut it in half. If it gets to like 700, 800, something like that, it would be probably advantageous to play it if you have the budget to do so, and that's the biggest thing.
Right.
You know, I would not recommend going and overdrafting your bank account and trying to pull all the money out because you see it's at 800. You know, it's because it can still go for quite a long time.
But that kind of runs into the same thing as the must hit progressive, is that it's already gone through all these numbers.
Correct.
And okay, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit of education and responsible gaming. We already talked about that a little bit, but you know, you've become a trusted educator in the space, which we all appreciate. How do you balance teaching people about slots while encouraging responsible play?
So responsible play and encouraging responsible play is something that we do in every single video. I'm sure you've probably watched many of my videos. Pretty much every single one, I say, set yourself an evaluation point, a stop point. Know what you're getting into. And that's the biggest thing when we go to put a video out there, is we try to educate people on this is what the best type of player it's for, best type of bankroll, stuff like that. The worst thing that somebody could possibly do is try to overextend themselves. And that's not something that we want to see. That's not something the casino wants to see either. Responsible gambling is taken very seriously in the gaming industry. So just understanding, and there's times I'll throw little tidbits out there. For example, the recent video that I had posted where I was after that major on that must hit by game. I made sure every step along the way to say the progressive is moving very slow because it moves very slow. And even though I'm doing this right now, you should not, unless you have the budget to do so. So it's like kind of that little bit of encouragement there of like, watch this for the entertainment, but don't run out and go do it.
Right.
Unless you absolutely are sure that you're going to be in a safe financial position that you can.
Awesome. So now, your conservative betting strategy is part of what makes your content unique. Can you kind of explain the philosophy to us?
So my betting strategies, I mean, what we do on the channel is, I've always said this, and this is really one of the other things that makes Cowboy Slots unique. We do something for everybody on our channel. I might come out with a video where it's like, I have 20 bucks and this is what I'm going to do with 20 bucks. and I'm gonna show you the best games to play on $20. And then the very next day, I could say, hey guys, we're here. We just put $20,000 in this machine, and we're gonna play it at $1,000 a spin, and everywhere in between. So I like to try to offer something for everybody, because there are folks out there that they do have a bigger budget. They do want to try something like that. There's a lot of folks out there that they have a very small budget. And it kind of ties back to in the beginning of the interview, talking about everybody has their own definition of what money means to them. So we don't pigeonhole ourselves into one category. This isn't, we're not only a high limit channel. We're not only a low roller channel. We do a little bit of everything, and we try to do everything as conservative as possible, even at those higher levels. We talk a lot about the 1% rule. The 1% rule is basically, it's if you're trying to build your budget, if you're trying to build your bankroll, your bet amount should not exceed 1% of that total overall bankroll. So there's a lot of times, we try to hammer that into the viewers. It's a great tool. It gets people used to and conditioning to understanding the relation between the money and the bet. And that's probably the biggest thing about the 1% rule. What it does is it's conditioning the mind. A lot of people have trouble making a connection to the money they have versus what they can afford to bet.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody comes into the casino and they're like, I have $200, and they walk into a Dragon Link and they say, I'm going to do $10 a spin. Well, if you stop and you think about the 1% rule, then you would know that for the amount of money that you have doing $10 a spin, your money's going to go very quickly. You're probably going to be done in about 3 seconds. And it's a lot higher of a risk.
Right.
So having that conservative strategy, once you get that down and once you condition your mind to at least make that connection and understanding, it starts making the bet amounts in the casino more clear to you. And that's the biggest thing that does, is it encourages people to just make that connection. So, going back to talking about conservative betting, that's the biggest thing.
That's awesome. It's a great way to look at it, because then, it's very easy to calculate your 1%, so what I'd love to do is, again, for some of the creators out there and some of your fans, is talk about your content creation.
Okay.
So your videos are super accessible, even for beginners. So what's your approach to making complicated topics easy to understand?
The slot world and slot machines, it's weird because it's very simple, but it's also very complicated at the same time. If I were to do episodes where I sit there and basically have like a math lecture, and we're going to sit here and go over exactly. And the funny part is I've seen, people want to have, if you make learning fun and learning entertaining, then people are going to not only enjoy it more and watch you more, but they're going to retain the information. And that's what's important, because you're making it fun and you're giving them a connection.
Well, we all remember those favorite teachers from back at school days. It's like, it was always the ones that made it the most fun and the most accessible. The ones that, like, I just fell asleep when you were talking about that before. I don't know how many times I fell asleep in class.
Well, and you also have to think too, a lot of the topics out there are new to a lot of people. This is where, like, payback percentage is easy, because everybody that's gambled, they've all heard the term payback percentage in RTP, but a lot of them have never heard about volatility. They've never heard about all of the other, elements that go along with it. So if you can make it fun and break it down in a way that they can understand, you have to really know your audience, and you have to understand that. Try to make everything as simple as possible. Water it down, give examples that are real world examples. A really common, I'll toss one out there for you, about odds. If I had a quarter right here, what are the odds for heads and tails?
50-50?
50-50. It's 50-50. Now, if I sit here and if I were to flip this quarter 10 times, is it possible for me to get all heads?
Probably.
It's possible.
Yeah.
So let's say heads is a win and tails is a loss. I could sit here and flip this and I could get tail, 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 head, tail, 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 head. The odds are still 50-50. That's the perfect example of it.
Well, that's kind of the same deal with like Baccarat.
Yeah.
It's like 50-50, but you can lose 10 times in a row.
Exactly. So implementing examples like that makes it easier for people to understand and comprehend. And that's critical and it's super important because that's how people get things in their mind. That's how people remember things. You know, if I were to sit there and, you know, say, okay, today we're going to go over the mathematics of this game. And if I were to do like a pie chart and a little dry erase marker and, you know, spreadsheets, nobody is going to go to YouTube and watch spreadsheets and math.
Right.
This is not a math class. This is YouTube. YouTube is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be exciting. You know,
Yeah.
people go on YouTube and they look up slot videos and they look up casino content. 99% of the time it's to have fun.
Right.
They want something entertaining to watch. If I were to sit there and do a math lecture, no one's going to YouTube to watch a math lecture.
Now, I'm good friends with, when we first started, I'm good friends with Gary Owen. He's a stand-up comic. He was my neighbor down in California. We lived there. And when we first started, I went to him to ask him questions because he's all over YouTube, all over Instagram, all over everything, right? I said, how do we know if something's going to go viral? And he said something that you said earlier. You have to be consistent.
Yep.
He goes, you can have the thing that you think is absolute fire and it'll do absolute nothing. Or you get the biggest turd ever and it goes through the roof and goes viral.
You know what? Side story on that. You don't know how many times I'll make a phenomenal video and like Ethan will put a whole bunch of effort into it. And we're like, this is going to hit. This is going to be like, this video has like amazing information. It's so good. It's so great. Boom. It tanks. Our #1 episode that is still #1 after 3 years of the channel was an episode that I had made. I woke up one morning, I'm getting out of bed. I woke up one morning and I'm like, oh, I got to do a video. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I'm going to roll out of bed and I'm like, put the camera on and I'm like, okay, let me just spitball this. And I spit it together and I'm like, oh, this is stupid. Nobody's going to watch it. That was our top 5 reasons why you lose at slots. And it's got over 2 million views and it's still #1 to this day. It's amazing that stuff like that happens.
Do you think it was just the realness of the video or
You
the
know, it
entertainment
could
or
be.
what do you think it was?
You know, and that I honestly couldn't tell you, but it's good information.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely good information, but I mean, to encourage other creators out there or people that are wanting to get into that, into the influencer realm in general, doesn't have to be about slots, but if you want to become an influencer, you never know. It just takes one. It just takes one video to go viral. You never know what video that's going to be. You could post something that you think in your mind is like, oh, this is dumb. Nobody's going to watch it. And it could hit and it could be the biggest one. One of our videos, that's what happened with us. So yeah, it's crazy. Or you could sit there and that's why, like, especially people that are new and they're just starting out on YouTube. I've had a couple people reach out and they say, hey, I'm doing this. I'm putting all this planning into it. I'm doing this. And it's like, dude, you don't have to do all that. You don't have to do all of that planning. You could just be you. Be you and it'll take off the way it's going to take off.
Well, we started our channel back in July. I think it wasn't actually till in like August or September we started getting really serious about it. But Carisa, my wife, hit a grand for $127,000 on Dragon Lake. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I had videoed everything else that day as far as bonuses because we weren't doing like long videos. It was just hit a bonus. I'll take a video. It'll be great. 3 o'clock in the morning, like, please, babe, can we just go to bed? I'm so tired. And what happens? $50 bet, boom, 127,000. So I get up like, oh no, and I'm taking the video.
Oh, man.
So our biggest video to date is her hand pay. And the funny part is 90% of the comments on that video are about how much she tipped, because a lot of people think that she tipped too much. and 90% of it just went nuts because everybody's talking about that. So the algorithm picked it up because people are talking about it, right?
Yep.
And it just went crazy. But still to this day, I'm so mad that I didn't video
You know,
that.
I will tell you this, and I'm sure every single slot creator that is out there watching this, including you know what I mean. Slot machines are camera shy. I swear
My wife says
they
it all
are.
the time.
Here's the thing. I am probably one of the only channels that I post a bunch of losing videos, and then because I don't record all the time. I record with a purpose. If I'm trying to educate, if I'm trying to show off a game, I record with a purpose. So when I go to a casino, I'm like, today I want to record piggy banking. I set up, we record piggy banking. Thanks for watching. Camera turns off, and then I go about my day and I play other things. Whenever I go to play other things and the camera is not running, I win the most money. it's
Well,
so
just
funny.
like I told you before, when I
Yeah.
played Autumn Moon downstairs, I put in a $260 ticket and cashed out with 17,000.
None of it's on camera.
None of it's on
Yeah.
camera, you know. And it's just it's funny because my wife says it all the time. She goes, "This camera's a curse."
It feels that way. It does. I'm sure every other slot creator out there knows exactly what we're talking about.
So we've had a couple of fun run-ins, and I'd like to know about yours. You've been doing a lot longer than we have. Are there any surprising or funny fan interactions that stick with you that you could share with us?
Oh gosh. Well, so here's the thing about me. Like I said at the beginning, my channel was an accident. I did not set out to become an influencer. I didn't want to become an influencer. I didn't want attention or anything like that. You know, a lot of people, they start a channel because they're like, I want the fame, I want money, I want this, I want this. I fell into it by accident. Myself, I am a very introverted person. And I tend to, like, whenever I go out, like, a lot of people always think I'm like angry or upset because I'm one of those people that I'm just like head down straight to where I need to go kind of thing. Like, I'm not a bubbly people person, like out and about. I've had to change that now since, you know, having the channel. Um, but I would say it always catches me off guard. There was one time I was I had to stop by the store. I was in another town. I had to stop by the store and I'm literally like, I think I was like, I was sick, like I was coming down with like a cold or something. I'm like, I need, you know, some cold medicine, and I'm getting like some soup and stuff like that. And like I'm standing there in the aisle, and I hear like, "Hey, Brantley," and I'm like, "Who is saying my name?" Like I'm like I'm at the grocery store. I'm like, and the two don't click with me, because I'm not thinking about the channel all the time. Because you know I'm not, you know, I was not one out there seeking fame.
Right.
So a lot of times, like there's a lot of times, like if like in the grocery store, for example, if somebody runs up, it'll catch me off guard. Like I won't make the connection. I'm just like, who are you? Oh yeah, I forgot I have a channel. Oh, like like especially if it's outside of the casino. Like if it's in the casino, I understand.
Sure.
Because at least like I'm in the mode. I'm like, okay, I'm in the casino. Like you know, I understand. But like if I'm at the grocery store and I'm like buying soup, and somebody comes up to me, I'm like, I will not immediately make the connection because I'm like, who are you? Like I don't think about the channel, and then I have to remind myself, oh yeah, I am on YouTube.
Right.
I can expect this.
Oh yeah, I have 400,000
Oh, yeah,
subscribers.
I
A lot of people,
forgot.
a lot of people watch me.
I'm like, I forgot about that. But yeah, that would probably be the most interesting one. It was at a store, like a grocery store. Somewhere.
This is interesting. So, I went to the Minnesota Vikings playoff game, and it was played in Arizona because of the fires that were going on in LA. So went down there with my friend, and we're walking across the rotunda. There's a band playing out there, and all of a sudden this person starts yelling, "Mayor, Mayor, Mayor!" And my buddy goes, "I think he's talking to you." Same thing. I didn't get it. And I turned around. I'm like, "Oh yeah," and I gave him a
Yeah.
big hug. I'm like, I called my wife right away. At the time, we maybe had 30,000 subscribers, but it's like there's enough people that watch it that all of a sudden it becomes part of their life, and you know it's part of ours too, where it's
yeah.
just like we become friends, you know, where it's just like it was an interesting thing, and I had to call my wife. Like, I just got recognized out here.
If you know, it feels good. You know, it feels good to be recognized. You know, we have amazing fans out there. You know, everybody that I've met has been, you know, phenomenal. Amazing people. It's crazy sometimes, but yeah, it does catch me off guard a lot.
So I was talking months ago with WBG and we were doing a collaboration on blackjack, and he goes, "What's your Discord?" I'm like, "Huh? What the hell's a Discord?" Now we have a Discord set up, and we have all those people on there, and now we're talking with people that are friends and fans of the page all day long. And it's just like it's become such a part of our life where we just sit there and they're giving us all this input on what we should be doing and helping us out and the mods and everything. I mean, it's a really cool life,
Oh yeah.
you know? So what I'd love to do, get a couple tips and tricks and strategies maybe out of you.
All right.
We got a couple more questions and then we'll end it. You often talk about profitable opportunities. So can you give us an example of a tip that actually helps slot players improve their odds?
So personally, I don't like the word odds.
Okay.
I don't like the word odds just because it's like it's so overused and
How
misunderstood.
about
Chances.
improve their
Well,
chances?
yeah, their chances. There we go. The biggest thing, I have a saying that I always tell people: slot machine strategy, real slot machine strategy, has nothing to do with controlling the machine. It has everything to do with controlling yourself. Start here first. When you walk into the casino, approach it, put your budget at the forefront. Put your budget as the priority, and kind of treat it, a little bit almost like a job. If you want to be really successful at it, um, evaluation points. That's the biggest thing. If you can control that, if you can control how you're viewing your budget, if you can control the connection between money, what you're betting, what your goal is, stuff like that, that'll be 90% of your success right there. General tips. Now the thing is obviously that is a big, what I just mentioned about budgeting and mind, controlling yourself is a very big thing, and most people can't get it on their first time, and that's okay. So a lot of people want like fast tips and quick tips. Play the game that is appropriate for your budget, and that goes back to that volatility. If you're a low limit player, you should not be on a game like Huff and Even More Puff. I run into people all the time that they're like, I go to the casino and I lose every time I go. And I ask them, I say, okay, well, what's your budget? I'll bring $500 or $300. Okay, what are you playing? Oh, I play the Diamond Queen. I play Huff and Even More Puff. I'm like, you just answered your own question. There you go. That's why. Those games are not designed for somebody with that low of a budget. You've got to start at a different game and then work your way into it. Could you get lucky? Yeah, of course you could. You could pop it and get lucky. There's people that go out and they buy one Powerball ticket and win the Powerball. It's possible. It's not probable. So I would say the biggest tip is you've got to start making the connection of what game is right for your budget. That's probably a big tip.
Well, it's interesting. Just from this interview, I've learned that I'm a low volatility player because most of the machines I play are lower volatility. So I'm not a fan of Dragon Link. Every time I sit down, I'll hit a couple times. Like when I hit $17,000, like, yeah, best machine ever, but the rest of the time, but like you said, I set a limit. And it's like when I got to 17,000, because I was up to about 19, I set a limit of 17. I'm like, I'm out of here. Because that was one of the luckiest. It's like being on a blackjack where you win every hand in the shoe. Doesn't happen too often. You need to get the hell out after a certain point. But I love, and part of the conversation we had at El Cortez too, I took a lot of that stuff and took it back with me. I use it to my daily play today, just from some of the things I learned from you then. So, do you have a favorite type or brand of slot machine? I kind of already talked about it before, that you personally trust more than others.
Personally trust. I mean, trust is a very strong word. All the like.
You don't
really want to trust any slot machine, so to speak. But I mean, you can. I mean, they're all verified. They go through third-party verifications and all that. But it's like, yeah, you don't really want. It's still a game of chance. I would say, like manufacturer-wise, I gotta say, Light and Wonder is kicking butt recently. They have been doing a phenomenal job. Like they have just completely changed the game with slots. A lot of like every new game that Light and Wonder is coming out with is just a hit right away. Um, well designed, everything about their games, their recent games, like they have an all-star team. So I would say if I were to pick a favorite now, now it would be Light and Wonder for sure. Light and Wonder games.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that we play is Light and Wonder too. As far as like when myself and V could go out, I mean, Carissa is just stuck on Dragon Link as much as possible. We'll be playing something else, and she's like, "Let's go play over there."
Yeah.
You know?
Now it's interesting too. So talking about manufacturers, we can also mention this. Manufacturers tend to have, they have their own like math models that they like to stick with because, the math of a game is very much proprietary. Game makers like to keep that locked away and hidden in secret, and like that's their special sauce. That's their formula. Um, every company has different math models. Some are really, really rough. For example, like IGT. IGT has always been known for usually the lower in volatility games, the classic games. That's where they shine. That is their pillar of excellence. The double diamonds, the pinballs, the top dollars, stuff like that. Um, Aristocrat's math is very rough. Aristocrat, they have a very, very harsh math model on the player, but there's big rewards in it. So people get, it's easy to get addicted to that math that Aristocrat has. That's why Dragon Link is so popular. Light and Wonder, what I've noticed about Light and Wonder's math is they try to make the math an experience as you go along. It's kind of like you get these little surprises now and again in the game. The games are pretty fluid. Like whatever math model they're using is very finely tuned, so to speak. So we can look at, each manufacturer kind of has like their own niche, so to speak. But I got to say, Light and Wonder, they're between their math team, their visuals team, all of that, they've just been blowing everybody else out of the water.
Well, this is a good lead into one of my last questions here, which is, where do you see the future of slot machines going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I see the volatility is not slowing down anytime soon. I know there's a lot of folks out there that they're like, I miss the classics and the low volatility and the 3 reels and stuff like that. I can see those for the most part going away, just because we're coming into this new age of gamblers. Because you always have to remember, there's generations. The boomers, they love the 3 reel games. Gen X was really the first generation to say, we want a little bit something more. And, they started coming out with the bonus games and stuff like that. But you look at like Gen Z wants a video game. They want an experience. When they sit there and they put their money in, they don't want to just sit there and watch reels go by. They want like immersive. They want the visuals. They want the pop, the wow, they want that rough ride. They want the thrill. It's like a roller coaster for them.
And you can kind of see that evolution.
You can see that evolution, and I can see slot machines really going to that. I would not be surprised. I've said this in a couple videos now. I would not be surprised if we see slot machines evolve into almost like a video game, where instead of like you make microtransactions. It's like, okay, do you want to, like you're playing this game and it's like you have a character, and do you want the character to go left? Okay, well, you have to pay extra for him to go left, or you have to, pay extra for him to go right, or whatever the case may be. I could see slot machines developing into something like that, more of like a video game,
Yeah.
like an experience. But it's, who knows? The possibilities are limitless, but we have to look at it generationally, and the newest generation of gamblers, Gen Z, late millennials, they love that. They love that roller coaster of a ride, and they love those visuals and the triple pops, the firecrackers, the big pigs, the pots. Like they love that stuff. So we're going to see a lot more of that.
So now, with your educational background, with your channel, you ever have any manufacturers or casinos or anybody reach out to you to partner with you, or maybe come up with your own slot machine or anything like that? Or
we have a really good relationship with a couple of manufacturers out there. for things like, advice, stuff like that. But in terms of like making like a Cowboy Slots branded machine, no, not yet. But who knows? We can't see the future.
And you've been doing this for what, 3 years now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got one more question, and this is kind of wrap it up here. So,
All right.
Once one golden rule you can leave with everybody that you'd share before they sit down at a machine. What's the golden rule? You kind of already said it before, but what's the golden rule for everybody before they sit down at a slot machine?
Well, I've already emphasized budget about 1 billion times, so I'm trying to think of a different one. The golden rule, aside from budget, man, I would say it's got to be a toss-up between have fun, but the golden rule would have to probably be you're not going to win every single time that you play. You have to learn to take the losses and to celebrate the wins. The losses are going to come. No matter what you do, these are still machines. These are still games of chance. You can be the most educated gambler out there. You're not going to win every single time. Me as a technician, knowing all the details about these games, I still lose. That's part of the game. You have to learn to accept those losses. But there are things that you can do to minimize the losses and learn to cope with them and yield more wins out of it. And that's what our channel's for.
Do I have to be happy with the losses?
You don't have to be happy with the losses.
Good. My wife always says that I
anybody,
over-exaggerate. I get pissed off.
Yeah,
I'm like,
no, I don't think
listen,
anybody's ever happy with losing. It's a sucky feeling. Nobody wants to lose, but that is part of the game. I do have people that come up to me and they're like, I followed all your methods and I still lost. And it's like, well, that's part of it. Like you're still going to lose. Like there's not a magic trick out there. And that kind of gets into another dangerous realm because there are a couple people out there. I'm not going to name drop, but there are a couple people out there that's like, I have a guaranteed way to win. And if you just pay me this, I'll show you the guarantee. There is no guarantee with slot machines.
Exactly.
There is no guarantee with gambling. You can do all the right things and still lose your ass. But consistently over time, doing all of those right things and conditioning your mind, you will lessen your losses and you'll have a better time at the casino. You'll notice, part of our method, the Cowboy Slots methods are not guaranteeing wins. The Cowboy Slots methods are, this is how you can start having longer casino visits, better casino visits, not have as many losses, and learn to walk away with something. That's the biggest thing about it. But yeah, be leery of the snake oil. Be very leery of the snake oil. I always say, if anybody's out there and they're selling a course or a book or an experience or anything like that, do you know why Cowboy Slots doesn't sell any information?
What is that?
Because my tips work and that's how I make my money. I don't need to sell books.
Right.
So if your tips work, you don't need to sell courses.
Exactly.
So that's the biggest thing is, if somebody's tips and strategies honestly worked, they wouldn't be selling a course. They wouldn't be trying to sell you something. So yeah, be leery of that. A lot of people out there are trying to take advantage of gamblers, so just be leery.
Right. Well, I tell you what, this has been a hell of a way to start off the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate
it so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Guys, thanks so much for watching All In with the Mayor. My first ever guest, Cowboy Slots. Brantley, thank you so much. Been an enjoyable first episode. We'll be back with another one. But for right now, I just want to thank each and every one of you for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Take care, guys.